Okay, today we're going to start talking about the two main Greek city-states, Athens and Sparta. I think you're really going to get into it, especially when we start talking about the mighty Spartans and their crazy, intense military. And it's cool because Ms. Johnson has been to Athens, so I'm going to have some cool travel photos of the Acropolis and of the Agora and some of the kind of the geography elements of Athens too. So let's get started. First thing, you have a question. What is the word used to describe the basic political unit in ancient Greece? So think back to your vocabulary, and what is that word? I'll give you a hint. It starts with a P. It's the polis, right? So if you got that right, good job. The polis means city-state. It's the basic political unit of how Greece is going to be divided up. Greece is not going to be one unified country for still thousands of years from what we're talking about here. Not until, I want to say, like maybe the 40s, 1940s. It's a long time before they are one unified country. And you will learn a little bit about that next year. But so now we're talking about these independent city-states. They're small but loyal population, so it included the city and the surrounding countryside. They had their own government. Okay, so there wasn't like a national government and then a city government of Athens and Sparta. Athens would have its own government. Sparta would have its own government. Troy would have its own government because they're independent city-states. Adult males were citizens, and we'll see when we talk about Sparta that women had a little more rights than Athenian women. They had political rights and civic duties. Remember, civic duties, things that you should do. Remember that from your civics class last year. Things that you need to do, things that you should do in the city-state, like voting, for example. Women and slaves, they had no political rights, and there was little interaction amongst other city-states or other of the polis. The Agora, another cool place I've been to, which I'll show you photos of. It's the city center. It's the business district, or kind of the downtown of the city-state. That's where people would shop, where they would discuss politics and government. And the Acropolis, the city top, the high defensible ground above Greek cities. All right, here is the Acropolis. My photos are better because I was actually there. I know you're really excited to see them. And then the Acropolis would be up here. The Agora would be kind of right down below. Remember, the Acropolis is the high part, really easily defendable, like they would be able to see if an enemy was approaching. And then the Agora, where people would hang out during the day, would be kind of just a little bit down here. All right, another example of what the Agora would look like. All right, so let's compare and contrast Athens and Sparta. Let's first talk about Athens. The leaders established reforms and to avoid upheaval. So we have these three main leaders, Draco, Solon, and Cleisthenes. I forgot how to say that. I have to ask Ms. Cook. So they had a direct democracy first, takes hold, where citizens were directly involved. Unlike that we have here in the United States, where you vote for somebody to represent you in government, in early Athens and direct democracy, citizens directly were involved, so they made decisions all together. Boys were trained in academics in order to participate. Women did not have very many rights. They would very rarely even leave the house. They weren't allowed to go to the Agora. They were not allowed to vote or participate in government. But the boys were able to go to school, and here they would learn poetry, history, math, logic, and debate. Girls were rarely educated. They had no part in government. Their main job was to take care of the household and to stay at home. Athens is going to go through different types of government. In the beginning, they're going to have a monarchy, where you have a king that's in charge. And then eventually, they're going to switch to an aristocracy, which means the noble landowners are the ones that hold all the power. They are in charge and make decisions. After that, we have tyranny or tyrants. We kind of think of tyranny as being a negative thing, but at the time, it wasn't quite that negative here in Athens. But it means one person. Right, so this might be that maybe the nobles who were in charge, or the kings who were in charge, maybe one of them died, or there was like a turmoil in Athens. They would have a tyrant, which would be one person who would kind of come in and fix things. So they would support the people, make a lot of promises. It was good then. It was good to kind of bring stability to Athens. Now we would not want a tyrant to be in charge, to have one person. We would consider that to be a dictatorship. And eventually, this great concept of democracy, we get that from Athens, rule by the people, both limited and direct. All right, some of the leaders. We have Draco. He writes the first Greek legal code in 1621 BCE. He was kind of like the Hammurabi of Athens. His laws were very harsh. Death was the punishment for almost everything. Property laws and contracts. Draconian, we kind of call this the Draconian era because we talk about the different harsh punishments. And then we have Solon. He reduces the power of the aristocracy, of the nobles. He ends debt slavery. Right? Debt slavery meaning that if you owed a debt, you couldn't pay it back, then you could volunteer to become a slave to pay it back or be forced into slavery to pay it back. He ends that. So that's his big legacy, Solon, is to end debt slavery. And he also set up the appeals court so that if you did not like the decision that was given to you, you could appeal it. Cleisthenes, I think I'm pronouncing that totally wrong, so I'm sorry. He establishes equality in law. He created a voting district and kind of had the more checks and balances so that the Senate wouldn't have all the power, the court wouldn't have all the power. It would be more of a check and a balance. Again, principles that we have today in government, a lot of what you learned about last year in civics, we get so much of that from Athens. All right, let's watch this quick video here on draconian law to kind of talk about the harsh realities of it.
And there were plenty of stupid deaths in the ancient Greek city of Athens when a bloke called Draco was in charge. He was super strict.
The Court of Historical Law is now in session. Today, we are using laws from the ancient Greek city of Athens, prosecuting all the way from the year 621 BC, the great, the all-powerful Draco, ruler of the Athenian people, philosopher and lawmaker, and the accused, Seth.
So then, Seth, if that is indeed your real name, I put it to you that on the night of the 12th day, in the orchard of Darius Panagopoulos, you did wantonly, brazenly, and with malice of forethought, steal an apple.
Stealing an apple? Is that what this is about?
Did you or didn't you?
Yeah, I nicked an apple. So who do I owe an apple to?
I'm afraid that under my draconian law, the theft of an apple is punishable by... Let's see, shall we? Death!
What?
Guards, take him away and make him dead.
Wait! No, I remember now. I didn't steal an apple. I distinctly remember standing in the orchard and making a point of not stealing any apple.
But you were in the orchard, which sounds like trespassing to me, which, under draconian law, is punishable by... death! Guards, take him away and make him dead!
Whoa, hang on. No, it's all becoming clear now. I was nowhere doing nothing. On the night in question, I just sat around, nowhere in particular, doing nothing whatsoever.
In which case we shall drop all charges of theft and trespassing against you, and replace them instead with a charge of idleness, which under draconian law is punishable by tickling! Well, that's not right. Death! Guards, take him away and make him dead! Unless you can think of something worse than death, in which case do that too, okay?
This is an outrage!
Well, not a bad result, I'd say. I mean, you have to take a hard line with these lawbreakers.
Actually, I think you'll find that was my apple.
No, move on. All right, so funny but also true. So what do you think? How could Draco's harsh laws affect the Athenians? Could it be a good thing? Is it mostly a bad thing? Is it a little bit of both? Is it going to kind of be a catalyst for more reform in Athens? Get your thoughts down. You could pause it for a minute and then we'll move on. All right, now comparing Athens to Sparta, or also the early Dorians. They created the Helots, which was a slave class from the Mycenaeans. But eventually, well, the Dorians created the Helots, which was a slave class from the Mycenaeans. But because they got so big, the Helots revolted and initiated the Spartan military state. So that's kind of the root of how important it was to be a strong and mighty military that we have in the Spartans. Also, the Rose Bowl winners, Michigan State Spartans, mighty there as well. The government was an oligarchy, which means that there would be a couple of kings who would rule, and then there would be an assembly, which was similar to the Senate, of 30 rich landowners. Boys were trained from age 7 from the army, and I'll show you some videos that talk about that as well. That was everything to the Spartans. It was about being strong, having a strong military. There would be, the baby boys would be sent up kind of like onto this hill, just naked with nothing there, and if they survived and they were strong enough to be a Spartan, and then they would go and train from age 7 for the army. They would serve until they were age 60. They would be gone for 10 plus years, fighting the military, training with the military. But girls and women had a lot more rights in Sparta than they did in Athens. Even though the girls were not being trained with the boys, they were still very much a part of that war culture, of that competition culture. So girls would compete in very kind of like Olympic type events with each other. Because especially since the men were gone for so long fighting wars and conquering other land, it was the women who were left behind to really kind of run things. They had a very isolated culture, little interaction. They did not care about wealth. The Spartans did not trade. They did not look for other colonies. They did not care. What they wanted was to be a strong military force. And the phalanx, their military kind of setup, is what really made that happen. And I'll show you a picture of that as well. All right, this is the phalanx, okay, that they developed. So we have these Spartans here. Really, can you imagine the Athenians or any of the Persians or any other kind of army coming up against this group? You can see that they're very united, and they're ready for battle. They will die instead of lose, right? Very, very fierce warriors. This video is absolutely hilarious, and you're going to love it, so I'm going to save it until we come back together as a group, because it really kind of summarizes in a funny and historically true way the differences between Athens and Sparta, especially as it relates to women. And this video as well we'll look at a little bit later. It's also kind of funny and kind of a good summary. Alright, so from the notes, and actually this video right here, I will post it in Blackboard so you can watch that when you're done with this video lecture. I want you to watch that video. It's like stick figures kind of talking about the differences between Athens and Sparta. You've listened to me talk about the differences between Athens and Sparta, so you get your whole thoughts down and answer these questions here. So give me 3 differences between Athens and Sparta. All right, you consider, like, I don't know, their government, the role of women, their goals, and give one similarity between Athens and Sparta as well. And we will come back together as a group and talk about it. We're going to do a chart that kind of helps to sort the differences between Athens and Sparta. Watch that other funny video, and you will be super prepared Athens and Spartan scholars. Okay. So after this, you may finish up your fake book if you still need some time to work on that, or you may also move on to do part 2 vocabulary, which is also posted on Blackboard. That will be due next class. And otherwise, just stay scholarly. How do I end this now? Oh no. Is it not recording?